All right, Shalom. I want to begin this lesson by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, Wahar Rakah Kwadash, which in the ancient Hebrew tongue would be the correct names of the Heavenly Father, His beloved Son, and the Holy Spirit. I also would like to give double honors to my teachers, the head apostles and elders, a great millstone. Much due honors and respect to the sincere brethren out there that's also laboring in His work. And as always, want to say Shalom to the believers, the Akim as well as the Aqua, which will be brothers along with the sisters that subscribe to this truth as well. So yeah, this sitting right here is going to be somewhat of a more in-depth look, if you will, into something me and the brothers briefly touched on during the live class we streamed last night, and the fact that the Haughty is now being brought low, which the Haughty would be none other than the so-called white man, the very one who brought you over here as cargo, to serve hardcore bondage and put you in subjection under his foot, and violated you pretty much by raping and ravishing your women, castrating you and hanging you and pretty much beating your nationality out of you, man. And even to this very day, have certain laws and legislations and a certain system in place to keep you in derision, and to keep you further oppressed. That guy, all right? Well, according to the prophecies, he's ultimately going to be overthrown. And that's the good news right there. That's the gospel and a luxury that our people don't have, in knowing that this is not a perpetual state, And although our people have somewhat of a voice, if you will, which I was watching the elder Yashawamba in one of his latest videos where he featured this guy, Phil, the advisor from the Phil, the advisory show. And I was meditating on how finally, Jake have somewhat of a platform or a voice, to, voice their displeasure and make a case, if you will, against the so-called white man. Yet that stage is nothing more than a platform to display ignorance, man. And I don't say that, maliciously, nothing like that. It's just a fair assessment. Pretty much our people is rallying for the so-called white man to not kick him in the ass with a steel-toe boot, but rather kick him in the ass with a tennis shoe, man. Okay? Which the results will be the same. You're still being kicked in the ass, man. And why? Because you're looking for justice from your enemies, and pursuant to the book of Genesis, the 25th chapter, around the 25th verse on down, this man is your natural born enemy, meaning he can't be rehabilitated. See? And our people is going to continue to chase their tail, like the elder mentioned. Why? Because they continue to sidestep the prophecies, man. They're attempting to elude what Yahweh Shah has laid out, the blueprint, which if you subscribe to, by default, you're going to be comforted because, again, the Lord have given us a glimpse, if you will, into the future, in the fate of our enemies. Matter of fact, let me start off real quick in the book of Isaiah, the 59th chapter. And starting at the 9th verse, it says, "Therefore is judgment far from us, neither doeth justice overtake us." Yeah, and this would be somewhat the rallying cry, if you will, or the words of our people, especially when they're given a platform, a stage or outlook, if you will, an avenue wherein they're able to voice their displeasure, or make their case, which ultimately they do nothing more than reiterate what we already know. It's well documented that the so-called white man is oppressing you. It's a well-known fact that this man has given you no justice, all right, here in your captivity. See, again, it says, "Therefore is judgment far from us." Yeah, and you actually hear our people say that. See, "Neither doeth justice overtake us." Yeah, our people cry out by saying there's no justice. See, it says, "We wait for light." Yeah, you looking for the answers, but behold obscurity. And there's a reason for that, mainly due to the fact that you continually attempt to elude the prophets, man, and the message that we convey unto you, which by default is going to bring comfort, But you rather attempt to establish your own salvation and bring some form of relief and peace and solace to yourself, which that never worked. There's only one way you're going to be comforted, and that's by way of subscribing and hearkening to the words of Yahweh Shah. See? It says, "For brightness, but we walk in darkness." See? We grope for the wall like the blind. Yeah, and again, you see that on display, these different platforms, right? You got guys such as Hassan Campbell and the guy that I mentioned earlier, Phil the advisor. They doing nothing more than groping. They're reaching. See, we grope for the wall like the blind. We grope as if we had no eyes. Yeah, and these eyes are symbolic to foresight. And see, that's the attribute that the Lord has blessed us with. Eyes to see, foresight. We see this man in his end approaching, man. See that? And that brings comfort. Whereas our people, they think this is going to be a perpetual state. They got to figure out how to coexist with the so-called white man moving forward, man. No, when you come into this truth, you develop a ruling class mentality. We understand that ultimately we're going to take this man down, man, okay? Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shah, and he's going to be the tail and we're going to be the head, right? It's not going to be a level playing field in the kingdom of heaven, but that's what Jake looking for. And that proves that the civil rights movement did a number on our people, man. To this very day, you looking for equality, man. You looking to be equal to the damn devil, right? When your desire should be to rule over this man. See? And that's the appropriate lot for the children of Israel. See? It says, we grope for the wall like the blind, and we grope as if we had no eyes. We stumble at noonday as in the light. Meaning what? This is the time where information is at its highest. Yet our people are stumbling, man. Let's read this again. We stumble at noonday, which noonday represents the highest point of the day. See? So we're in a time now, which is known as the information age. And mainly due to the fact that the Lord has opened the floodgates and the fact that this truth is out here on display, man. See? Yet our people are still stumbling. See? We stumble at noonday as in the night, right? We are in desolate places as dead men. We roar all like bears. See? Meaning you making noise, you finally have a voice, right? And mourn, see? And mourn, soar like doves. Yeah, our people are mourning. See that? They finally have a platform, if you will, where they can roar, right? But pretty much it's to no avail. Whereas we, on the other hand, we have the words that comforts us, man. See that? It says we look for judgment, but there is none. Yeah, you're looking for justice, see, but there is none. For salvation, but it is far off from us. And again, this is the words of the 2/3, man. Those amongst our people who have finally began to acknowledge openly that the so-called white man is the problem, yet they don't have a solution. See that? And that's where this truth comes in, right? So with that established, one of the main components, if you will, that's going to bring about this comfort and has brought about comfort to you brothers and sisters out there, ultimately all of you believers out there, who subscribe to these teachings, which is the teachings of our Lord Yahweh Shah, where you have been comforted. And again, the main source of that comfort is the fact that we know that the so-called white man is not going to have a perpetual reign over us, man. See? He's going to be brought low, which brings me to the feature scripture, if you will, found right here in the book of Isaiah, the 24th chapter, right? And starting at the 4th verse, it says, the earth mourneth and fadeth away. Yeah, we're in a time where the fingerprints, if you will, of the so-called white man is being washed away, man. Everything this man has laid out in the form of his recreation, the NBA, the NFL, it's fading away. Your pastime, whether you was accustomed to going to happy hour, different clubs and bars, different venues, sporting events, concerts, across the board, it's all fading away. Now, you can point to certain things, the coronavirus, the lockdown, but we understand perfectly clear that it all goes back to Yahweh Shem Shah. All right? We're in a time where the Lord has begun to make inquisition on behalf of really the elect of the nation of Israel. Okay? Again, it said, the earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languisheth, see, and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. And who is the haughty people right here? Well, when you go into the word haughty, it literally means high. Okay, those on high, right? Matter of fact, let's go ahead and click on this word There's a couple of words I want to click on, but let's start off with this word haughty. Now the Hebrew word here would be maram, all right? It says height. See, height, elevation, elevated place. So one of the definitions for this word haughty in relation to the so-called white man, he would be that haughty people that's now beginning to languish, is height. And there's a reason for that, because when you consider the so-called white man, he pretty much have the attributes of an eagle. You know, he's compared to an eagle, which the attributes of an eagle, of course, is his ability to attack from an aerial point of view. You know, and that's the so-called white man in the form of these airstrikes, right? An eagle also possess the attribute of keen eyesight. And that also applies to the so-called white man in the form of his intelligence. You know, this man has sent forth spies. You know, they have cameras the size of a damn pinhead, man. You know, where they do documentary on ants and such. You know, they have these intelligent agents in the form of the CIA that infiltrate certain organizations. That's pretty much an effort to put eyes, you know, behind enemy lines, if you will. So that's another reason why this devil is compared to an eagle, for his keen eyesight. You know, an eagle also possesses claws, you know, which that translates to the laws of the so-called white man. You know, his laws, once they pierce you and you're taken by his laws, then you finish. And he uses his laws to attack you. See? And also, and mainly, the eagle is very proud, man. Okay? Among all the animals here on the planet Earth, he's exalted higher than any other species or form of species, even when you consider amongst the fowls of the air, the birds themselves. He elevates more than any bird. He flies higher than any bird. See? So that's why one of the definitions for this word haughty is height. See? Height, elevation, elevated place. See? It says height, proudly. See that? Proudly. So when you go back here to the book of Isaiah, the 24th chapter, and again, the 4th verse, it says, the earth mourneth and fadeth away, the world languisheth and fadeth away, the haughty or the proudly, which if you don't know by now that word proud is attached and joined to the hip of the so-called white man, that's pretty much a stigma that's joined unto him. If you don't know that by now, then I don't know what to tell you. You know, this man is the proudest of beasts, man, here on the planet Earth. All right. He's fueled by pride. You know, for an example, the mere fact that this man is pretty much acknowledging that America has lost the luster it once had in his shine, right? But the fact that his approach is let's make America great again, that's a very proud statement, man. See? Nevertheless, this is the makeup of the so-called white man. See? It says the haughty people of the earth do languish. See? The haughty people of the earth do languish. Now I want to look up the definition for this word languish real quick. And the Hebrew word here would be amal, right? And it says to be weak. See? To be weak. The so-called white man who has such a strong grip of power, a strong grip on things, man, is now being weakened. See? And just imagine our ancestors, you know, if they was able to see what we witnessed in the day. You know, our people who was brought over here as cargo on those slave ships, and even more recent history. You know, where you had Jakes being terrorized by these devils, and they couldn't go to the courts for justice, man, because the very one who was on the stand was against them. You know, they'll have an all-white jury, and pretty much the corporate will ultimately be exonerated. Our people couldn't go to the cops for justice, man, because they was the very ones by night wearing the white hoods. They was aligned with the KKK. So imagine viewing things through the lenses of our people. They didn't see this man becoming weak. In fact, they thought his strength was perpetual. Matter of fact, let me grab a quick precept, and we're gonna go back to these definitions here. All right, but this is the book of Psalms, the 73rd chapter, and starting at the 1st verse. It says, truly the Most High is good to Israel, even to such as are of a clean heart. Yeah, and this scripture right here proves that the Lord is not dealing with Israel in its entirety. He's only dealing with such as are of a clean heart, and that would be the elect. See? Verse 2, but as for me, my feet were almost gone. My steps had well nigh slipped, for I was envious at the foolish. Yeah, and who is the foolish? The so-called white man. And that's pursuant to the book of Job, the 30th chapter. See? It says, when I saw the prosperity of the wicked, for there are no bands in their death, but their strength is firm. See? But their strength is firm. And again, this is how our people projected things, man. Our ancestors, you know, and all of our people, even to this very day, who haven't been exposed to this truth. You believe that the strength of the so-called white man is firm, whereas we see this man being weakened. See that? And this is one of the main reasons why our people are not willing to hearken to this doctrine, because this is unbelievable in their eyes, the fact that the so-called white man is going to be overthrown and ultimately going to be put in subjection under us, man. They can't see that, man. Why? Because they view this man and his strength to be firm. See? But according to the prophecy, what we just read in Isaiah the 24th chapter, in the 4th verse, how the Lord is going to bring low the haughty, and he's going to begin to languish. Well, back to this definition for languish. See? It says to be weak. See? To be weak, man. And again, this is what comforts us. The fact that this man who had such a strong grip of power, you know, and he was pretty much given the power over the nation of Israel. Well, guess what? The Lord has taken that power away. Because it's Haughty who give power to those who are in power. And you can read that in the book of Ecclesiasticus, the 10th chapter, around the 4th verse. See? It says to be weak, to droop. Yeah, to droop, to languish, to be exhausted. Yeah, you are being exhausted. When you're exhausted, that means you're not flourishing. Matter of fact, you know what? Let's prove that real quick. And I'm going to go back here. This is the book of Ezekiel, the 17th chapter. In the 24th verse, it says, and all the trees of the field shall know that I, the Lord, have brought down the high tree. See? The Lord have brought down the high tree, and that's what we're reading right here in the book of Isaiah, the 24th chapter. How the haughty is going to be brought low. He's going to begin to languish. He's going to be made weak. See? It says the Lord have brought down the high tree, have exalted the low tree, and that's what we're witnessing right now. The Lord is now beginning to exalt the low tree, starting with the elect. Okay? It says, have dried up the green tree. Yeah, and this green tree is symbolic to Esau. He was flourishing at one time, but now he's being dried up, see? And have made the dry tree to flourish, which is a fulfillment of Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, you know, concerning the dry bones. Now we're being saturated, man, through this word. See, it goes back to this word. Our people never had the answers until they subscribe to these teachings, man. See, it says, and have made the dry tree to flourish. I, the Lord, have spoken and have done it. But the point is, the Lord said he have dried up the green tree. See, and that's why when you go back to these definitions here for languish, right? Because the haughty is being brought low and he's languishing. It says to be weak, to droop, to languish, to be exhausted. See, to be exhausted. So that's a form of being dried up, you know, not being saturated. See that? It says to be weak, to droop. See, to droop. Matter of fact, let's click on this word right here, droop. Droop. It says bend or hang downward. Woo! Bend or hang downward limply. Yeah, meaning you have no strength. And that's the opposite of being erected. Okay? To be erected means to rise. You know, to droop or hang, to be limp, means to be abased, to be brought low, man. And it displays a lack of strength. So the strength of the so-called white man is being taken. See that? So we don't get caught up in, you know, police shootings and, you know, these racial rants or Karen, right? yeah, we are broadcasted. You know, we report it as a job and our duty to do as being the watchman of Israel, right? But we understand that ultimately, when the smoke clears and dust settles, this man is going to be overthrown, man. This is just a temporal state, see? And we're going to be set up perpetually. All right, so when you go back here, let's go back here to these definitions. It says to be weak, to droop. It says to be or grow feeble, to be or grow feeble. See that? And that's where we at in this process. The so-called white man has now grown feeble. See? And this is what comforts us in the fact that the Haughty is now beginning to languish. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. Lord willing, it was edifying. Till the next time I say shalom.